academic and it's theater, and the place where they both meet.
We have the audience and participants for each other.
Intellectual practices, historical practices, cultural practices. Everyone? Everybody, please.
Examples of women
sharing what it is that you do, sharing how you do that.
There's no way you can ignore Latinos anymore.
Work from all around the world you can come and see and talk about.
It starts out a little thing, you write a bit.
You have to be completely open.
Theater for everybody, yes, everybody.
That's just what should be done.
And indeed, my understanding of life, relationships, death
has already changed.
The survival of theater as an art form depends on that.
But there's room for it all. There's room for it all.
So, welcome everybody to the Martin Siegel Theater Center here at the Graduate Center CUNY, and I'm Frank Henschke, the director of the Siegel Center. And thank you to those who came in the afternoon to those fantastic screenings of that gave us a little insight in the world of Etel Adnan, who we are celebrating tonight, or we have the honor to celebrate and to be associated with. We have Klaudia come here with us from Volterra. In Italy. She's a German a writer and curator with whom we collaborate on the Heiner Müller in America Day. It was a 1.5 years ago in the fall, a very significant day where also a book publication will come out and really traced how the Heiner Müller was influenced deeply by his travels through the US after realizing maybe earlier than others that East German GDR would come to an end, and he saw how the future might look like, and he decided he couldn't write anymore in the dramatic structure and created the Hamlet machine after his visits to Texas, but also driving around the country and in America. Klaudia is working on the Etel Adnan. She's a friend of hers for a very long time. Klaudia and Bonnie Marranca, who is here with us from the great PAJ Performing Arts Journal, collaborated then on that fantastic play At a Certain Hour of the Night, which will be in the upcoming, has already been published, right, in September, in the PAJ form, but they're working on a book together, and so it's a great honor to have you here, Klaudia, Bonnie, and also a greeting to Paris. Etel Adnan is watching, and I hope everything is working out with the live stream and she could connect. She can't travel anymore. She spent a long time of her life actually in the US, in San Francisco mostly, but also here in New York. In the poet scene, she is very much involved. And she's a poet, a writer, a curator, a great painter, a visual artist, and also a journalist, a great human being, and also an activist. So it's truly an honor to have her here, her artwork at the Biennale in Venice, and then also at the Documenta, the second to last one. It created a sensation, and she got truly recognized overnight for what she really is. She's a transforming, transcendent presence as a contemporary artist. If I understand right, this is the first time a play of her in English will be done in the Americas and or presented, and this play, and so tell us a little bit more about it, and again, thank you all for coming, and then we will go on to the reading right away with Zishan, who directed it. Zishan Ugurlu, good friend, professor at the New School, a great director who lives of The Invitation by Ellen Stewart in La Mama, and the great Black-Eyed Susan, a significant, important member of the New York community. So thank you all for coming. Joanna Bukhar, Marvin Carlson, Claire Montgomery, Marion Chevard, so many people here, Peter Ackersell, Diana, Keith from the Center for Humanities, who works here and still comes for an evening, so that's amazing. But so tell us a little bit about the play and what we're going to hear. It's going to be 50 minutes.
So I won't tell you much about the play because we will hear it afterwards. Only one word, that Etel is also a philosopher and she's also a playwright. And why a playwright? I'd ask her at the phone. And she said, yeah, some thoughts come by as a dialogue. So they will be a play. And this play, At a Certain Hour of the Night, is about the oneness of love. And the only thing I know is that it was performed in a reading in a very rough German translation in a festival in Karlsruhe, but in the original English version, it's the first time that it will be out this night at Siegel Center. Thank you so much for coming.
At a certain hour of the night, Etel Adnan. This play could be produced in 3 different ways, with 2 women, one older than the other, 2 men, one older than the other, or a man and a woman, one older than the other. The older person would be in her or his late 70s or early 80s, and the younger would be 55 years old or near that age. The text will remain the same for each case, only the grammar will have to be adjusted. My intention is to show the oneness of love. In a corner of the stage is a couch on which a woman is lying. She is dying. Towards the morning, we hear the siren of an ambulance coming to take her dead body away. It's the end of the play. The dialogue is taking place in a single night.
In this dark night, we are last reunited. But what has become us during these long, long years?
Turning slightly toward the couch.
She has been lying there for a week, 2 weeks, dying without dying. For how long have you been here? Why did you wait so long to let me know?
You're always on the go, at least that was usually the case. One never knows how to find you, where. But I tried. In these last weeks, she was particularly eager to see you again. So many years, she was saying.
You mean I was always going away from you? Yes, I was.
Your timing was always wrong. Who knows? You may have been right. I can't tell anymore.
And you have been thinking of me all those years?
These long years, thinking of what happened to both of us.
You can't speak of both of us. Why should you open such an old wound?
I thought of you so intensely, so much when I received this letter, this short letter that you sent. When you heard about the fire that had devastated the whole neighborhood, you feared for me, for us, but we were safe, thankfully.
Yes, it was on national news. I was afraid of that the fire had reached your home. It's true. So much time had gone by and you were all right, comfortable in your life and in your job.
We're happy. Yes, I'm always happy.
Always, always. At the end of your letters, you were adding always. Yeah, that's years ago. What did it mean? Did it mean that I don't love you, but I do? Is that what it meant?
If it meant that you're dear to my life, yes. But where's my life? You were part of it, certainly. In the beginning, for sure. Oh, that light through my window that you like so much. Your dreams, oh, were you not dreaming?
I used to think of you even when you were standing in front of me, running away from you to meet you in my thoughts. I was quivering. I was lost, remember? I was just 20 years old.
We're not going to make a tale out of our lives. Oh, our lives. So many things have happened since. You have had involvements with so many people. How can I ignore that?
I used to wait for you from the beginning of the day, waiting for the evening, waiting for you to come, go into the kitchen, prepare some meal, cross the corridor, a corridor always in the dark, and then you were telling me whatever had happened in that day.
And you had your big and innocent eyes, constantly discovering the world.
Let's start again. Let's go back to those days, huh?
My love, it's impossible. Do you have to be always running after the moon? You know, you really didn't change. But are you just speaking nonsense?
Why do you say it's impossible?
You know why as much as I do.
Because you're married?
You're married too. I mean, you're not living alone. You never have.
It's not the same. It's never the same. I used to cry. Every time you were going away, I was crying for hours in public, in my room, facing the mirror, on my pillow. Sometimes I was crying in front of you when you behaved with indifference, when you didn't want to. You were afraid that you would find out, they would find out. It took you so long to say yes to me, to admit, to be disarmed. What can I say?
We don't need to look back here now. We just met again. We may have a few hours. It's that much one. One on what? I can't tell.
Look at me. I live with my memories. They never leave me. And there are things that I want to clarify even now. Why were you so afraid of people hiding? Always hiding, lying. Why?
Darling, I couldn't tell everything. I had to be careful. Oh, you were so oblivious of everything that was around us. You never noticed the suspicions, the glances, the endless one's soul, hostility that people exude against any manifestation of love. The world can be so sordid, and it is. By now you must have found out. I have known men and women who committed suicide because they were so humiliated by their parents, their friends even. I wanted to shelter you as I had been affronted all the way back during my adolescence. You need to live in a bubble. Oh, you used to live in a bubble. Oh, such a transparent one. I was admiring your innocence and envying it too. I have to tell you, although it's still painful to admit it, that I didn't have your availability, your youth, the ways you could start on the road at midnight with just a toothbrush. I never experienced the kind of freedom that you had.
When you left with that awful South American young girl, you didn't hide. You behaved so natural, both of you. You settled together regardless, impervious to anything and anybody, fearless.
The times had changed, not totally, but they have.
How many years did you live together?
Not many, really. I forget.
I've not forgotten. There are pains one never forgets. As I have not forgotten either that whiteness, that clarity of the air that you were bringing into my room whenever. This almost blinding light that you were shedding on my days. When you were getting pale just at the sight of me. When your lower lip was quivering. Is all that gone for you?
We were reading books together.
I was reading them to look for you through the words. I could barely slip. I was deprived of you the whole length of the days.
Why do you bring all this up? It's so useless. It's another world. Aren't you tired of the past? I don't linger on it. I haven't changed on that score.
And in the evening, there was your lamp, your face lit by its light, a golden glove over you, and the perfume you were putting on your fingers. And I was coming near your hands, the richest of my nights.
Those were our best years. But there's nothing left.
I had to go and sleep alone. a few rooms away from yours. The irony that seemed to have governed my life started right here, at the beginning, with love at first sight of you. I entered your soul much before entering your body.
Oh, stop it. My darling, stop it. So much time has run like a river, like sand. You never had a clear vision of reality, going always too fast. That's, by the way, what I loved in you and what I had to run away from.
Yeah, you ran away from love, that's all.
But I was returning to you and you couldn't see it. Were you in love with your own dreams? Was it rather that I was myself intimidated by you? Oh, it's too late for us to bother with such things. We're the shadows of our own past.
Everything is always too late, too late. Tomorrow you're already leaving. But our lives have left us, years have gone, and I never received a word from you. Yet we were not far from each other. We are living by the same ocean, 1 hour by air. So many times I look at the sunset and told myself, she may be looking at the same scene. And tonight, she will lie by that woman. It's a marriage. I have to admit it. It has lasted so long. And you had announced it to me. We were in that charming, though wretched restaurant in Paris when in your cool ways you said to me that you had found the answer to your life.
Yes, and that's still true. You don't have to bother, though. I loved you much before you had the slightest idea that I did. And after all, you're the one who went first with that young woman. Well, she was beautiful, yes. You were driving all over Europe together, fooling around while I had to rebuild myself. I never said much then.
This lack of love, this uninterrupted silence, did you ever think that it was nothing? I couldn't sleep, or otherwise was sleeping for days because I wanted to forget you and still find you. God knows where. It's in recurring dreams that you were kissing me as annihilated by passion. And at the end, my hands were holding nothing but just smoke.
Yeah, you're still daydreaming.
You were peacefully asleep, pale, white. I have often seen you as if you were dead. You must be aware of that. White and stretched on your bed and withdrawn into the pity you always felt for yourself, feeding your own pain, the pain of a little girl deserted by the suicide of her mother.
There's always been a misunderstanding between us. I intended to protect you for the evil that I had in me.
Evil? What evil? Can love ever be evil? Nonsense. This so-called desire to protect me against yourself, I never bought it. I was facing an open field with so many roads, and at the end of each, I was expecting to reach you, and when I was there, there was nothing. Sheer air.
Oh, yes, I was there, but you couldn't see me. I was divided against myself, and yet I was waiting for you, but was not admitting it, let alone that I didn't want you to know. You were violent as children and little horses. There was something in you that used to scare me.
Well, now that we are leading separate lives, though by the same Pacific Ocean whose beauty is almost monstrous, I still consider you to be a kind of a secret I cannot decipher with my hands as empty as ever. It is time for me to find the courage to tell you that I should have told you from the beginning. I didn't do it. I'm looking at you and you're radiating my own happiness. Should torture be the price for the kind of bliss your presence still creates? Should I face you as a Christ become female, unveiled body and soul in order to draw you to my warmth, my solar origin? You who are maleficent and moonstruck, huh? Let me talk to you about my sickness of love, sickness, and lack of love. I have been unable to either put up with or forget your absence. These trains, these buses, boats, all the means of voyage have been used by you to avoid me, to leave me alone on hospital beds, following a destiny which had to excluded me.
You always sensed that I loved you. I had such tenderness for the dear little wounded animal that you were, my dear child. I couldn't keep.
I went out of my mind so many times until I wished that the summer sun burned my eyes so that they won't try to see you again.
And you couldn't sleep?
No, I couldn't.
Although you were having affairs, you were traveling, not answering my letters.
And why?
Why?
Because your letters were informing that you were horse riding in Montana. Your letters from Ohio and New York State were telling me that your odious partner was going on painting her awful canvases, that you loved her narrow hips, and so on, while I was waiting for the first break between you. And the split eventually happened, and you suffered like a hell. I heard, yeah. She left, and I wish you a pain until death. And you didn't ask me to come back.
Always speaking of death. Always these inflated statements.
There is nothing overblown in what I say. I'm speaking of pain, real pain, the one which settles in one's bones forever.
Death. Always death.
Looking toward the couch.
Look, we're like this woman. She moves, she's going to fight. She refuses to die. She's near the end.
She can't love anybody anymore. She's lucky. Sleeping. But you loved her, though. Though it didn't last, she remained faithful to you. She was obsessed by you. She also loved me in some way. And somehow I was looking for you in her presence, but it was useless. I ended up feeling a strange kind of disgust. Soft tenderness is really not for me.
We are probably the keepers of some hidden thing, something I have never figured out totally. I have never understood the nature of what was attaching me to you. The word love must have scared me.
You're in a strange place, in a strange moment. Will her agony keep going?
Well, at least she doesn't seem to suffer. We'll find out soon. Anyway, I won't wait here forever.
You're sleeping here. Of course not.
We're already late in the night. I wonder.
You were never telling me ahead of time that you were planning to leave. You were running away like a thief, always hiding something, always lying. Women also can be cowards. That's what you have always been. And I fell for that. I did, good Lord, I did.
You're again turning in circles. Do you want me to tell you that you used to make it hard for me to do almost anything? Things were always going wrong.
To leave without a word? Without a tear?
Yes, I never cry. Oh, it may not be true. You didn't need to see me cry. But stop it. We're getting nowhere.
Our lives are done. It all went fast, like those days in the countryside, when come evening the baskets are put aside, and everyone plunges into melancholy of the return.
We kiss each other goodbye, and the other is already not listening. You were projected into the future, residing I never knew where, incapable to still your mind in the here and now. There was nothing I could do.
Does all our talking make any sense?
Don't come that close to me. You will disturb me.
I mean, she mustn't be hearing a thing. Feel nothing. God knows where she is.
Not
I am here. Listen.
Pulling back a bit.
Not here.
I wanted to kiss your hands.
Just
your hands.
No, my hands have aged.
Hey. You're shaking all over. I know what goes on in you when you start shaking. You denied it. But when you were shaking, it meant you desired me.
No, not here, not now.
Then there, where? Never?
Maybe not. Oh, yes. Never.
But why?
You can't discuss love in the room of a dying person. It's sheer madness.
She's not dead. She's sleeping. Maybe more deeply than a while ago. And us, where will we meet tomorrow? Tomorrow? Tomorrow where?
Tomorrow? Well, I will have to catch my plane. For us, as you say, it's too late. You're daydreaming. Nothing changed. My dearest, we can never restart things. Never.
It's over. Every drop of my blood knows that it's over. And for decades. But nothing ever ends. Death is for sure a kind of an end, but we don't understand it. I don't even realize where I stand right now. It's all a big cloud. But you have been like a source of light that I loved more than love. And you will tell me that all this is finished?
Nothing ends for sure. But can I make you sense how weary I am? I am tired. I am weary. I am an old woman. Face it.
Turns toward the couch.
Look at her. Look. You will be lying one day soon on your deathbed like she does. And as you excluded me for so long from paradise, I will not be there to close your eyes.
I protected you against myself. I repeat, I never dare tell you all the miseries I had endured before I met you.
The destruction of a heart is worse than the destruction of nations. You destroyed me. Your arguments mean nothing.
The truth is, I wanted to keep your friendship.
While I wanted to keep our nights alive together.
I guess so. It was impossible.
And why?
We are here at long last. Let's have a moment of peace.
We are here, and it's a disaster.
Oh, she's hardly breathing. We're supposed to watch over her. She won't last. She was a courageous woman. I would say an admirable one.
Yeah, she will die. We are surrounded by death. I mean, us, yes, we have always been. We had this thing in common. A mother who was a kept woman, an only child who had to observe her anguish. Her love, too. You were 12 and you came home from school at noon, I think, and found her in a pool of her blood, a suicide, a little gun by her side. You always stop the story at the presence of the gun.
You remember it.
Yeah, in that funeral chamber that my memory has become, I keep everything that's related to you. I live with your ghost. I sleep with your ghost near me, around me, under me, suffocating and tender. Love of my love.
What are you really trying to do? We came to see for the last time a dying friend. That's all.
You're alone, all alone. This dark night, which is all around, is also within our heads. I will teach you something before you yourself soon become some fire, some dust, that, by the way, I will myself breathe, while you will be lost for the whole of the universe. I will inform you of a basic truth about you, the fact that your life got extinguished the very day you gave up on me. Yeah. Ever since, we have been survivors. Candles set aside, dead leaves, dead lands.
What happened will always have happened. Nothing can take it back from us.
I know. Those sweeping statements are empty shells. Don't I recognize you in them?
Oh, I love the child in you. Oh, those innocent eyes that were looking at me. Where are they? This feeling of guilt, a woman's guilt, made me resent you. I resented your very existence. You came to me as a luxury I was both entitled to and couldn't afford. Oh, it was tough. I was living in such utter insecurity, and you were impervious to my health, my reality, as well as to yours. In fact, it was unfair, but that's the way it was. And I have never said it before. I was jealous of you, terribly jealous of your capacity for passion, even if it were addressed to me. There was always this strange desire I used to feel, this need to die for you so as to be reborn for others. It's always for the sake of some other person that one recovers from one's love.
So you consider yourself as being cured?
Wait a moment.
B goes to the couch.
Oh, she's really dying. Not any noise. This silence, this sadness. Well, there's nothing we can do. We should think of her, mourn her. I should say some prayer, but I've never learned how to do that.
So you're admitting that we are caught in death's circular and irresistible movement? She's dying. This woman is dying, is gone, and me too, and both of us. She has brought us together, and she will separate us. We will soon go again our separate ways, pretending to live. She gave us, though, our last chance.
Oh, she had been so fond of you. You were an enchantment to her.
Listen to me. We have no present, no future. Don't tell me you never loved me. That nonsense. I can't help it.
Oh.
I must dry your tear. They don't need to see them when they will come. They will separate us forever.
There's one last thing you must know about me. I have never been able to love anybody unreservedly. To love totally. No, never. Oh, let's forget all this talk. The ambulance must be on its way. They will carry her, not to her home, no, to the morgue.
Okay, now listen carefully. I'm insisting, listen. When the ambulance will be gone with her, we will leave together. It's our last chance. I'm clear about it. This time, I am not going to lose you. Come what come, we'll go together. Somewhere we'll find out.
You are out of your mind. Where do you want to go? You have your life and I have mine.
You have nothing and I have nothing. I mean, there are hotels, there are trains. We'll find a room. We'll let the walls close in on us. I have to feel that between you and me, there will be no place anymore for anything whatsoever, not for a needle. The doors of hell will open and we shall at least leave.
It's impossible.
Come on, that's one night. Okay, 2 nights, huh? 2 nights. Later you will have an eternity of a night all to yourself. Let's have a few days of real happiness, a few days stolen from the gods and from pain. How you can refuse? Nothing else should matter.
Oh, you're insane. You're scaring me.
Is wanting to live unreasonably. Okay. I seldom spoke my mind to you, and that must have been a fatal error. Now I will be forceful. I am begging you to listen. Let's go. Say that we will go together any way you want.
It's totally out of the question.
We will discover some place together. Be totally anonymous by a beach. I will teach you every evening a new sunset. I will be as you like. We will laugh, we will forget time, people, everything. We will speak for hours. You will tell me things you told no one. Remember you were telling me over and over, I want to speak to you. Oh, how I need to speak to you. And it really never happened. It still haunts me. Now it is time to do what you really always want to do.
I want none of all that. I am not as unhappy as you think. I am satisfied with my life. You have no idea.
It's beside the point. I'm asking you to give us what we missed, lost. Give yourself a moment of truth before your turn comes for disappearing from this world. Give yourself some moments of true happiness. Be free.
I will never be able to go away with you. I can't. I don't want to. You have to believe me.
A big silence. A pounds the wall with her fists.
Therefore, what if we take right away, here and now, the decision to die? Yeah. Not willing to live together, we shall die together. I'm inviting you to a grand voyage. You will repeat this trip that you took to the sea in order to join me. You did it twice, 3 times, and each time to return after the worst kinds of misunderstandings. But now, we will return right there. If you would die with me, our ghosts will find that fateful room, that last voyage. We will have to do it anyway, sooner, maybe than we think. So let's do it together. Let's retrieve our love in a long moment made eternal by our common death. You don't want to live with me, so you will die with me.
You are tearing me apart, my love.
Daylight will come soon, and let it rise for us too. In death, we will find a new life.
Oh. You're delirious, totally out of your mind.
I already told you that I always thought you were a coward. Why are you afraid of dying since you're already dead? Should I stir your memories again and again? During one of our nights, you had whispered to my ear, I am dead. And you cried. The only time I saw you cry, defeated at last. You had asked me not to move, to remain calm like the surface of a pond, and suddenly you plunged in the dark water, possessed all my senses, and I had to shout. Then the pond rescinded itself, and I didn't know if I was with an angel or being made of flesh. if my spirit was not breaking even more than my body under the weight of total bliss? Close your eyes, you were asking, and I was closing them. I was hurting at the edge of your love, of your life, and you were breathing my own breath. How? But how and where has all this disappeared?
Yes, I was a being of the night and still am. But in my nights, things didn't go well. In them, I was encountering mostly vultures, storms, terror, cataclysms. I had tried so many times to tell you about it, but you were never listening. Now, we can allow ourselves any great upheavals.
Yeah. You and I came here, mind you, to watch a grand rehearsal. We are here to see her dying, lying over there to see how people die. As we will also die soon together after all these years.
Oh, it's hard for me to see you suffer to this point. Stop it, please.
I will explain to you death's meaning. You will listen.
Not now, not here. It's suffocating.
When you don't want to suffocate anymore, you must accept to die.
You won't have to wait any longer.
The more I look at you, more I get what's happening to me. I suddenly am in love with death. I hunger for it. I yearn for it as if it were a dessert. I feel a desire for it as if she were a woman. She's possessing me as you would have. She resembles you. She's so beautiful. She's here and you will share her with me. She's splendid madness.
It's hard to hear you, to see you suffer. Look, they will be here in a matter of seconds. Can you be out of reality to such a degree?
The dead have a new soul, different from the one they had while living. Death has an intensity which I am familiar and that will inhabit me from now on. It's a dark stream circulating in the arteries alongside one's blood. This intensity belonged to life, and we refused it. Now I wonder if death is not kind of a life on its own right. If there isn't a joy that belongs particularly to death, if death doesn't originate in the divine like love itself. Let me speak to you of love now that we are nearing our end. Give up your ridiculous defenses and face things as they are. Allow me to tell you that love befriends only life and death. We have rejected one. We shall embrace the other. And you won't have the freedom of choice for the first and the last time. You will have to follow me. You will always, and to the end. I, at last, took finally power over you, and the road is irreversible.
If only I could help you. If you could only realize how much you meant to me and still do. How much it nearly destroyed me to let you go. You don't need to push me to get towards my death. Time will do it. It's just a question of numbers. You know, you're looking at me but not hearing. I am at your mercy. You have to believe me.
I waited too long for this moment to happen, so I won't let it go. I maintained in its perfect state a maddening love for you that you were dreading, that you thought was forbidden, that you were hiding from. Though after you left me, you ignore these fears and scruples. Now you will do exactly as I say. We missed the possibility to live together. We will do it now and in death, mixed together forever. If you could be outside, you will see that the sky has cleared until infinity.
I said you scare me, and you do.
This time you are scared.
But I am here at your mercy as usual.
You will follow me down the scales to hell, in the dark, in the cold, and you will never leave me.
I'm hearing the ambulance's siren. They have arrived. They will soon open the door. They'll take her away. Oh, it's quite a while since she has died. But you don't want to know it. I wish that they let some air in this room. We badly need it. You may come back a little to your senses.
Let the dead take care of the dead. They can come and take her away, and I will take care of us.
If only you could at last see how worn out I am. I am really exhausted, and there isn't much left for me to lose. My journey is done. You want to do as you please, do it. My energies are too far gone for me to resist. You may be right, who knows? And who cares? Nothing makes sense anymore. So let it be.
As soon as they will be out of here, I will push you into my car, and we will go like in the past, like when we crossed together to the whole of this continent. I will drive straight ahead, and you will keep quiet. You will obey our common destiny. Yeah, I know where we are going. I am taking you to the sea that I love and that you hate. The sun will be barely out. You will not mind that they will see us. You won't have to be a coward anymore. And then we will reach the cliff this time. And this time you will say yes to everything I decide, absolutely everything. And anyway, I can't care less if you agree or not. You will obey me to death. And the car will go over the cliff. And they will later find us together. And when they will look, they won't be able to know whose hand is this and whose eye is that, to whom these bloody hearts used to belong. And then I will tell them from death's other side that all this mess they see is us. It's you and me, indistinctly. That we are this heap of flesh and bones, and that at last nothing will be ever able to separate us. Nothing.
The end.
Klaudia here with us, and also Zishan, Susan, and we'll talk a little bit about the work. You want to join us? So
Thank you.
First of all, maybe a question to Klaudia. Where does writing for the theater fit into the work of Etel Adnan?
What do you mean?
Well, she's, as we said, she's a painter, a very prolific painter, a poet, you know. But so, how much of her work is writing for the theater?
Very few of her work, I would say. She has written maybe 7 plays, but plays like you heard now, maybe very philosophical plays. And I thought when I heard it, so thank you very much, it was very, very nice and interesting. So how much it's on language, and how much this theater is maybe like a Beckett so-called play about thinking and rationalizing and speaking about something which is nearly ungraspable. So this I discovered whilst you were speaking and reading, and it was extremely interesting for me.
Yeah, Bonnie. So you also have published so many plays, and you have followed the New York avant-garde, but also European avant-garde over decades. Where do you think that work as a play or as a play text or a matrix for performance? So where does it fit in?
Well, it's I would say it's along the lines of a philosophical dialogue. I think it's closer to cinema than what we know of theater, or certainly closer to European theater than what we think of in terms of American theater. I was immediately struck by the play when I heard about it. Just to take a step back, I just want to give a little context for how the play came to be published and how it's being read for the first time in the U.S., any of her plays. Last spring, as you mentioned earlier, Klaudia was here for the Heiner Müller days with regarding the legacy of Heiner Müller. And I'm Heiner Müller's publisher, so PAJ is, so I met Klaudia at that time. And I guess we started talking, and then I found out that she had, and she gave me a book of Etel Adnan's, a book, Night. We somehow got to talking, and I had said that 4 or 5 years ago, I happened to be at the McNally-Jackson bookshop, and Hans Obrist, the curator that you spoke of earlier, was there in dialogue with Marina Abramovich, and they were talking about all these wonderful artists around the world, and they mentioned Etel's name. And it didn't register with me, but a friend I was with bought me her book. And then 2 or 3 years later, I met Klaudia, and again, the name came up. I may have seen her work at the Whitney Biennial. I probably did, but again, it didn't register. I'm not really part of the downtown poetry scene, so many poets know her work, but I didn't know it through that point. And we eventually came to decide that I would be able to publish the play in PAJ, and it came out in September. And then we met in Europe, and we began to talk about other projects and things, because Klaudia and I are now working on a book of Etel, putting together a book of Etel's writings and artwork. So I remember she called Etel Adnan for me, and I spoke to her on the phone, and I was so apologetic because we've published 1,000 plays and over a period of so many decades, and I feel so bad that I missed this great author. I don't know how it happened. She just slipped off the radar, or I don't know why I didn't know about her. And I was so apologetic, and I was apologizing to her for not publishing her work sooner. And at this time, she was 92, and she said, well, things happen in their own time. You're so philosophic about it.
Yeah, and as she said, she would not know what would have done to her work if it would have been earlier. But Susan, you have done so many works in theater, from the Ridiculous Theater Company to the work with John Jesson and so many others. So how does it feel for you to speak those words? Could you take the mic, because we also...
It's really, the words, she's really exposes how she's really feeling in one way or another. And it's not as blatant as American plays, is just saying something just directly, but it's also explaining just how she got there, what has happened, and what she said about living in a life where things aren't accepted, and you have to be careful, otherwise your life is ruined. And it goes on so many levels. It doesn't only happen in Europe, it happens here. It's just so true. And it really hits home. It's, I can feel it through the dialogue. It's saying that it was like Beckett, sort of, yeah. But it reminds me of some other place too. It's just so, it goes from here to here, but not just jumping. There's reasons, and they're explained. She's so literal. A literate writer.
Zishan, how did it feel directing the work?
I mean, it's interesting.
Can you take the microphone?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I didn't act and direct such a long time, but I think I dared to do this because it was a short play. And also, I met Etel Adnan's work when I was in Turkey, I think 5 and 6 years ago. I had somehow in pain about love. And then one of my friends said to me, I said, I need to read poetry. I said, the only way that the pain is going to be explained, and I have to need poetry. And then he suggested actually I should read Etel Adnan, and that's how I met actually her work. So I read her poems, which is translated in Turkish, so it was wonderful. And then when Bonnie said that, I was thinking about this, when Bonnie said that, I don't know how it slipped, we didn't pay attention. And then I thought, because we don't love enough poetry, I think. As a director, for me, as the only inspiration, I mean, I can get inspiration everywhere, but I think most of the time I get my inspiration from poetry. So this is very enchanting in a way. When you read Etel, is you're understanding the details of everything. I mean, the way she says, it's inspiring, but also because it's a philosopher, so you kind of start questioning love, and when you are really questioning love, then you start questioning whole universe. So it's kind of, it reveals yourself to self. So for me, directing was just really discovering the words and talking about love, and then of course what we talk about when we talk about love. So it was yeah, I mean, I realized when I was reading also, there are so many ways to direct this play. It's 2 men, 2 women, man and woman. And so for me, I thought it would be very interesting and it could be wonderful to hear that the words are coming out of 2 women. So I made the choice because of that. I mean, Sirens, when I heard tonight, because it's a stage reading, I was like, it could be longer actually, or it could be even overlapped with the lines. That would be great. But I guess, yeah, that's it.
And of course, there's a long tradition, of poets writing for the theater. I mean, the U.S. is Frank O'Hara, Bob Holman, Yusuf Komunyaka, Ariana Reigns, who writes for it, and so Anne Waldman, and so many other. But still, it feels, I think, as you said, he's a philosopher. It almost sounds like a timeless philosophical reflection on existence. And but I wonder, do you think that play that would be staged, would that have an audience, or is it, as she said, Adnan today, well, I go to readings, often 2-3 people comes. These are the best readings, actually, and there's no large audience for it. What do you think?
So, I think it's absolutely possible, but one really has to take some time, because it's not only talking, it's really in this moment of acting, it's also perceiving and reflecting. And I say it because I'm the translator of Etel's poetry in German language, and it's always the same. So I read a poetry book and I think, this time it works. Simple, simpler. Then I start, and then after some weeks I think, the same, so complicated. Then I redo it, and then after a year and a half, I think, now it works. And it works in the moment when I really took over her words, seemingly so simple, into the other language, and there remain the same questions I had when I read it in the English or French original. And staging her work would be, it has to be a free production, because it really needs time. And it was wonderful to hear and see it this evening, because lots of thoughts came in my mind. And this kind of theater would be wonderful. And I think there are small theaters also in Europe, for example, for this kind of work, but special houses and special groups. But would be great to make a staging.
Could I add something to that too? For a number of years, I've thought that one of the really radical things to do in the theater would be to turn away from spectacle and go back to a very private, intimate theater. And that sort of fulfills this function. But I also want to say that her work is very dialogic. She has several pieces called Conversations with My Soul, in which she kind of looks at herself from the outside. And just many of the construction of much of the construction of the poems and other things also have this dialectical or dialogic way. But also, she's not such a stranger to theatricality. Gavin Bryars, the composer, has done the Etel Adnan songbook. There are people who've made operas of her work. You've worked on radio plays. The pieces lend themselves to radio plays. Walter, I don't know if you're still here, but somebody from the Wilma Theater came up and said they're staging one of her texts, one of her literary texts, at the Wilma Theater in Philadelphia in the summer. I think it's only a matter of time for someone's work to get known. Besides this play, we have another one in the volume we're working on, which has to do with an Arabic woman who doesn't want to get married. Crime of Honor, it's called. That one may be very stageable. But also, some of you may or may not know that Etel Adnan was invited by Bob Wilson to work on the Paris section of the Civil Wars, and she worked with Heiner Müller. She was also involved in creating modules for a prologue for Charpentier's Medea, which Gavin Bryars did, and it's a little bit of a mystery to sort out which texts are which and what was actually staged, and part of her text was only staged in the Marseille workshop because I think the Paris production never really got fully off the ground, and as many of you know, the Civil Wars never quite came together also as a full project. So I say that just to emphasize that there's a lot of theatricality and strains and directions that her work has already been in. Been going in, and I think it's just a natural step once people know of her work more, because it's so timely for today in its worldliness and cosmopolitan aspect. A person who brings together themes from America, from the Middle East, from of Europe, and also people's desire for a different kind of rhetorical style in poetry and philosophy, since we're inundated with so much information and junk images and debasement of language.
Yeah, I think her work as a poet, perhaps where she was most known before she had that big breakthrough at the Documenta for Visual, most beautiful abstract landscape paintings, starting from the Red Square. But I think perhaps if she's born in Lebanon, she had formative years in San Francisco as a student, lived then in Europe, and really someone who uniquely, in a way, represents, some of the centers of culture in the world. I don't think she really engaged with Asia, but someone like, perhaps like since Rumi or Khalil Gibran, so there's not someone who might have transcended these cultures in a way that she did. I think it's the play itself is quite devastating, but still a declaration of love, of universal love. And we just had Meredith Monk here, so it's interesting that she said it's all about love. Just last week, a weekend ago. But is she writing? Is she still? Have you ever seen a play of her performed? And is she still writing other plays? Do you know what she's working on at the moment?
Yeah, we could ask Stephen Motica, her editor here in New York.
Oh, Stephen from the Poets House. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know. Come over here. I didn't know that was you. Yeah, come over maybe and join us.
Sure. And Sarah, you might know more than I do.
I had not seen you with the beard, so.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm the publisher of Nightboat Books. My name is Stephen. And we're publishing a new book called Surge, which will be out this summer, and it has some more of the conversations with the soul that Bonnie mentioned. And when I saw Etel about 6 weeks ago, and she was starting work on a memoir, and she was writing very brief passages, and she was just trying to work at it. And I don't know how far she's gotten, but she was definitely, I think, she's one of the great storytellers, and her narrative, the contrast between her narrative capability and her performative capability make her just an arresting speaker, and so we'll see how far she gets with that project.
Yeah, and maybe since we can slowly also go to our audience, maybe some light to everybody, but maybe Walter from the Wilmer Theater in Philadelphia, maybe tell us a bit. We didn't know about this. What are your plans you have up there, and how did that happen that you are inspired to create a play on a significant American stage?
Well, we got to know Etel's work through her friend Theodoros Terzopoulos, the Greek director. We've worked with him several times over the last several years, and he suggested that she was someone we might be interested in. And so we read some of her material, and we also recently formed a resident acting company that trains together, and training inspired by Terzopoulos. And we read her poem there, and it felt like it addressed all sorts of questions we were asking ourselves, and have been playing around with it for several years, and just, we don't feel like we've cracked it yet, but we got obsessed with it. So we're waiting to find out if we can get the grant for it, but it's so expansive. That piece, if people know it, it seems to cover the history, human history, geological history, very much of the moment of mass global refugees, rises to cosmic levels, and then shrinks as intimate as the piece we've just seen. And so hopefully in September 2019, you're going to see that with our acting company and with some sort of filmic installation from Rosa Barba around it. I wish I could be more precise, but
thank you.
It's the challenge that excites us.
Maybe a comment or a question from the audience to that beautiful reading, and again, thank you for directing and starring in it. And thank you, Susan, also really for coming. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for beautiful reading. And it's interesting about these intimate texts about one huge subject, which is so ineffable as love. And one observation, it was very peculiar to me. It is a shimmering piece, which I was thinking it sounds in places like a mother-daughter situation, a mother-daughter love, and then it shifts, of course, into something else, and then into, so it really, it shimmers, it shifts all the time, which I think would make the staging also very difficult, because the layers, and I'm wondering, I mean, there are just so many layers in there, even though the text keeps repeating. There are lots of repetitions, and from that point of view, it's also very musical. But what I found very peculiar to me was that shifting between different kinds of love in that same text, different relationships, and maybe because it was two women.
It's almost like a choreography. Maybe you can ask Joanna Bokar, one of the great American choreographers who's here, what attracts you to her. Do you see, if you give him the mic, Elida, do you see that also? Is that a piece that you see is stageable, or could be put in motion?
Thank you. I'm here to listen and out of respect for this artist's work. It's just.
Have you ever thought about it?
I've worked quite a bit with text.
With her? With her text?
With Robert Wilson's text, with Edward Albee's text.
But would you, about Etel's play, would you think about? No.
Oh, I'm really just here to listen. But I will say that the Levant and its representation is and its sensibility is a very special place to be speaking from. I think that's evident.
Thank you. Another?
I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that question that she asked, because I think about the different voices and the different characterization of the erotic love versus the paternal love. That I mean, and if you
when you brought up the fact that the part of the love encompassed a mother-child thing, and I think that maybe, because they lived in such narrow times, and one was older than the other, maybe at first it started out that way, then changed a little, it seems, frightening, then changed a little, but it would sometimes go back to it, like she had to take responsibility for this young child, the way that the person was behaving. And it's interesting that the relationship could change like that.
To pick up on Jonah's point about the Levant. Oh, to pick up on Jonah's point about the Levant, I wonder, am I putting you on the spot? But you know her work a lot. Can you speak about the Muslim sensibility in her work?
I mean, I have to say.
A microphone.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. I think I'm tired. I want to say something that the first time when I read the play, I mean, I moved to this country quite late, so my sensibility about love when I read, it was a very Middle Eastern world of love, and the price we pay for love in Middle East is very different than the price we pay in America or in Western world, maybe, I can't say. So it is, to me, is the images, and then someone who loses itself in the name of love. It's very Middle Eastern. It's very that kind of world that it's so familiar to me. I mean, I have to say. And I personally went through those kind of passages that she actually describes. So to me, it was very close and very intimate. Same time, it's terrorizing, but yeah, it's very. Sorry, it's very, very Middle Eastern world images and the mind, I guess.
I want to answer on this because I think it's also very political. Because everybody was overwhelmed when, for Documenta 12, Etel decided to write a text in the small booklet, which is the cost for love we are not willing to pay. And this is enormous because we are willing to pay for every destruction in the world. We are willing to pay for every highway, for horrible things, but for love, we are not willing to pay. And what do we have to pay? Or what will we pay? And I understand what you say, but I think it goes beyond the Mediterranean thinking or context. It's really a very political question. And this was amazing also in the play at a certain hour of the night, when everything is really closed and you're completely alone. You are alone with your love, your death, your life. So what's going really on in us and in our societies we're living in? So this is what I think is so extraordinary in the poetry of, and in the whole thinking and working of Etel Adnan.
Marvin?
Again, going back to Beata's comment about the shimmering quality of the work, it's something that I guess Bonnie and others referred to this at the beginning, and this, we keep coming back to this, and that is, and I don't say this in a negative way at all, the work is not theatrical. That is, in the sense that the theatrical implies a particular kind of embodiment and physicalization. And it seems to me that the point you make about the shimmering is really essential to the play, and that is that while it speaks very profoundly about human emotionality, it doesn't pin it down. That is, it's not masculine, it's not feminine, it's not mother-daughter, or it's all of these things. And it seems to me that the reception of it is most effective when we keep drifting around and think, oh, this sounds like mother-daughter, or no, this sounds like people of different sexes or the same sexes. And it seems to me that puts a tremendous challenge on any actors who want to do it, to keep that neutrality of it, which I do think is very essential. And of course, it's built in. We see this at the very beginning of the stage directions of these can be men, they can be women. And it's a very interesting and very particularly challenging piece in that way, it seems to me.
I mean, maybe I can, sorry, I just want to say something about that, is that, I mean, directing, in my mind I was talking to Bonnie on the phone, and then I said that its stillness is so strong in the play, it's almost suffocating in a way that you just don't know what to do with it, because we are not still creatures. We don't know silences. We don't know stillness. I mean, we are living in this urban jungle. So it feels like when you read those words and when you go deeply, profoundly, what they mean and the complexity of the age difference, because they have between each other, they have 25 up to 30 age difference. So to me is such an incredible theatrical device already is there. It's bringing all the, I mean, changes, the transitions that, so I think that her philosophical mind is bringing this quality into play that I agree it's extremely challenging. to staging, I guess, to bring into that kind of dynamic into the play. Yeah. I interrupted you. Somebody wanted to ask something?
Yes, hi. It's just a comment, but maybe it's a little grain to put into your mind. I didn't see really, I mean, I saw death, older people. This was a stage direction, was 80 years old and 70 years old, or 55. So not young actors, you know, in the primes. It was really from the point of view of older people. And I felt that it was a suicide mission, in a way, that you can see love only as a photo negative of this death, which is a subject that we don't really talk about. And I don't know if I was tainted by the news this morning with Syria, but for me, it felt very political, in a way that a young person say, if you cannot love me, then we're going to die together. And I saw it more of a I don't know, in a bigger picture, maybe.
That's great. I think it's great. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yes, yeah.
Around 2014. So it's a new play. Yeah, this is also amazing. It's a new play. I think that Etel, she's so courageous. It's also about sexuality. It's about being together, and not only in the mind. So the body is involved. So it's really this kind of wholeness and oneness with such a lot of fragments and facets. So this is what for me is, she's so courageous. This is what is so touching.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, I would say honest, because, you know, being steamy at 89 when she wrote this play, or certainly some of the very steamy, marvelous, subtle things in Premonitions, for example, and so forth, it's simply straightforward and honest, rather, you know, in my mind, rather than in a sense that someone who's a bit older is courageous when they talk about sexuality, and another generation might not be considered courageous necessarily. So I don't know, that's kind of how I see it in that sense. And certainly her honesty is there in all of her writing. But this is a marvelous, complex play, and it's really the ambiguities and so forth are spectacular, and it is a steamy play, and it is, you know, there's nothing in it that someone isn't going to identify with. So I just thought I'd say that.
A lot to discover. Maybe one more question or comment. Fiona.
Thank you. I would just like to ask Stephen to contextualize this, because you know her poetic work, which is also where I first came to her work. But to me, this plays, when I actually leaned over to you and said, that's very different. And I just wondered if you can contextualize it a little.
It makes sense to me that it's a recent work. Actually, there's a lot of the emotional character of it, to me, I think is sort of reflective of the last few years. I think, I guess for me, we all have a favorite work, and we all have a valley we live in with Etel, or I like to think that way. And if you saw the Hans Ulrich Oberst piece, like, I think like the Mount Tamalpais and the California years have always been very important to me. And then how that is a place of origin for Etel, and how that comes then into sea and fog and location, and even in this new work, it's really a deep missing of that landscape, and a missing of the California poets that she knew, and Jiang Kaiger's Death Ends the Book, for example. So I have always started there with her, and then of course there's the her life in Beirut, and her mother and her father, and then the other pieces get added. But and then there's Paris. So I don't know. I guess the thing that really strikes me is there's a real intimacy here, and you brought up the sort of the sexuality and the partnership and some of the jealousy of being in a close relationship, and then having a partner who's the same age difference. So there's definitely echoes there, and I mean, I guess of the text that sort of dialogic question that dialogic aspect was mentioned. Do you place it with specific books or so? Or Sarah, you know her work.
Yeah,
really
for example, there is a really good example. And there are the poetry books. I realized when we did the radio plays, also Night is kind of a dialogue. And this is a very dialogue, but Etel's poetry is always a dialogue. So it's kind of also an inner dialogue. And we spoke about this conversation with my soul, but also conversation with myself in a way. And maybe it's because I don't want to interpret. So it's what she says, that she was a single child and that she has no friends and that she was really alone with elder parents. So it's kind of perceiving the world and dialoguing with oneself. And beautiful that she says, so some thoughts pass by in real dialogues and they become a theater play, and which is poetic, but a bit, not more, but a step further maybe into the public. And this is what I like so much with At a Certain Hour of the Night, but also with Crime of Honor. Bonnie and me are going to publish in the next book.
So I would like again to say thank you to Zishan and Susan, Bonnie, and for publishing, and Klaudia for you also, Stephen, but also Klaudia for coming. I think in one of her drawings, it's called a New York City street noise. It's like full of gray and black, chaotic a movement, and I think what she does in her work really is kind of a stillness and a powerful, I think, complex stillness with a philosophical one. And I think it was Muller who said, the complexity of life, or the beast can only be confronted by beauty and stillness. And I think she is one who really can do that for all of us, and is kind of a mountain, the one she spoke about. She admired in a way for her followers or her people who know her work. She herself represents that some victoire. So thank you all for coming, and really also thank you for coming out. We're going to have a little reception here if you want to ask some additional questions. Again, thank you all for taking the time and for coming and listening to a voice from somehow far away and so very, very close. Thank you.